Hey. If I say, don't think about a pink elephant, you're thinking of a pink elephant, aren't you? You can't control that. Therefore, you are not your thoughts. I rest my case.
To brainstorm, to make your motherfucking brain warm. A strange form, something kind of lyrical. Biggie the bastard, so that's kind of spiritual. Well, God we trust, turns out
Let me try that again. Fuck you. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Individual means you can't be divided. And while this may be true of the soul, it's not true of the mind. What's the difference? The soul experiences, but the mind is experienced. I lost my spoon fighting the mosquitoes. Oh, it's right here. Hold on, let me read my script. Understanding this was the difference maker that took me from a bitter drug addict to the star you see before you today.
release the brainstorm.
And I'm about to explain it. Before questioning their understanding of reality, most people identify with their thoughts. They feel as though they are the voice that occurs within their head or the thoughts that appear within their noggin. If that was true, you'd be able to decide what your next thought was going to be. But you can't, they just sort of happen. Even if you get the sense that you did decide what your next thought was going to be, did you decide to get that sense? And if so, did you decide to make a decision about that decision? You get my point. Point being, you don't look at an infinite selection of possible thoughts and then choose the next one. So, if they just happen, then where do they come from? I have no fucking idea. But if you pay attention, you'll notice something about them. Most of your thoughts come with an agenda. If you see a pile of shit on the floor and think, disgusting, that thought came from the part of you that has an agenda to avoid coming into contact with potentially harmful substances. Cocaine, for example, another very harmful substance. But a coke addict will see a line and won't just see danger, although he will see that. He will also see a sense of euphoria, joy, and relief from life's suffering. And the parts of himself that associate it with positive things like euphoria and joy and safety and all of that are louder than the parts of him that associate it with danger and badness and terror and divorce. So, instead of avoiding it like he does with the pile of shit, he snorts it into his lungs, even though it is just a pile of shit. But before he became a certified drug addict, the part of himself that valued long-term health and safety was likely louder than the part of himself that valued doing cocaine. And as he gradually became addicted, there was also likely a period of time in which the two voices were roughly about equal in loudness. At which point, deciding whether or not to do cocaine was probably a very stressful decision. Why? Because his internal decision-making committee, his sub-personalities, would have had to have had a very intense debate deciding what to do. Someone in the other room just walked past. I've got a red light here that's like, it probably looks like I'm doing a webcam thing. I am not doing that. Or am I?
Release the brainstorm.
Self-help. The same can happen in large life decisions. Maybe you're offered a job and you just can't, for the life of you, decide whether or not you want to take it. That's because there's a war going on inside your head, or a big debate or committee meeting between all of your different sub-personalities that have their own agendas, and each one of them is fighting to ensure that its particular agenda is fulfilled. Okay, bear that entire point in mind. Let's wrap that one up and just leave it. I used to hate the concept of becoming your higher self, because I was like, what the fuck makes it higher? By whose standard and on what scale? But after experiencing life as both a nihilistic party addict living a parasitic lifestyle, and as somebody who's not only overcome many of my own struggles, but has taken what he's learned from that experience and managed to help some of the people closest to me as a result, I can safely say that the part of myself which had the latter agenda was my higher self than the former. It's higher because it's closer to my genuine ideals, and your ideals are always above you. You're aspiring to them. Nobody aspires downwards. So no, the phrase higher self isn't hippy-dippy shit. It actually just makes sense. Because it's closer to your genuine ideals, not just because it satisfies the bottom layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which are more like elements of the human condition that came at me rather than true desires that came from me. Which do you think is more you? The part of yourself that wants a McDonald's, or the part of you that wants to live a long, healthy, fit life and look sexy as fuck? I should stop doing that. I'm sorry. It's the latter one, right? They're both sub-personalities of you, but some of them are more you than others. The goal of self-development is to become yourself in this way. Hence the term self-actualization. Living in accordance with your actual wants and desires, not just the short-term possessions of biological instinct. Fucking, I freestyled that one as well. Fuck, what I wrote was so much cooler. The goal of self-development is to become yourself in this way, which is to free yourself from the control of your sub-personalities that essentially came pre-installed with your copy of the game of life. I should just stick to the script. People often speak of wanting to escape addiction. Why would they use this language unless the sub-personality that speaks of its desire to overcome addiction was being held captive by the sub-personality that maintains it? Point proven. So how do we apply this knowledge? Sorry, I keep looking at the thing instead of the camera, I'm a narcissist. How do we apply this knowledge? Well, just knowing it and thinking about it is an application in and of itself, because many psychological issues, when just looked at or understood, tend to actually vanish. Similar to when you're a kid and you're really scared of the ghost that's chasing you down the hallway, and you notice that the faster that you run, the more real the ghost becomes, because it's fueled on your acting in accordance with the belief that it were real. So when you run faster, you're acting as if it's more real, thus it becomes more real. This is one of the definitions of belief. And it's only when you just stop running, turn around, and look at the ghost that it ceases to exist. There's no other way to kill it than to allow it to capture you and realize there was nothing there. But you've got to have the balls to turn around and look. But beyond just that, there are some neat psychological tricks that we can use to take advantage of this particular psychological topology or anatomy of mind. First, you have to identify your sub-personalities that came pre-installed and don't align with the true desires of your higher self. Things like lust, hunger, the desire for instant gratification and to not get out of bed or to hit the snooze alarm, these are all instincts that possess the lowest of our sub-personalities. When you're working out, for instance, and you hear that voice in your head that says, "Just give up. Who really wants to be fit anyway?" That is the voice of one of your lowest sub-personalities attempting to manifest its agenda of comfort and instant gratification. But here's the thing. You have the most powerful weapon in the world up your sleeve. The first weapon drawn in any conflict, language. Let me explain. That sub-personality that you heard in the gym thinks that they are you. They can't see past their limited scope, and the only way that they get what they want is if they trick your soul to think that they are genuinely speaking on behalf of you, the true you. And therefore they require you to identify with them in order for their words or directives to bear any weight at all. So, name them. When you give that sub-personality a name, you instantly place them into the category of other, which instantly puts a huge barrier in between them and their pussy-ass agendas. Ah, there's Lazy Brady piping up again. Oh, look who it is, Cocaine Cobain. There he goes again. Anxiety Kyle trying to prevent me from talking to this cute girl. Anxiety Kyle was a bit weak, I ran out of ideas. It sounds insane, but if you genuinely think that sitting where you are doing fuck all, instead of going up and saying hi to that really cute girl, is a good idea, then you're already insane. Insane problems require insane solutions, my dude. And that's more than just a joke too. It's easy to think to yourself, I'm not insane, it's totally normal to get nervous. Which, while being a partial truth, is still a comparative statement. Insane is a comparative statement. It means less sane than the average. But who are you comparing yourself to, the average person or your ideal? Now, I'm not saying you should beat yourself up about getting nervous just because it falls short of your ideal. There's a reason that in the examples that I gave, I wasn't trying to tell the sub-personalities to shut up. I was just naming them and acknowledging their existence, not trying to suppress them. You are going to get nervous because you are human. You shouldn't be afraid of that fact or try to suppress Anxiety Kyle. Acknowledge them, but just recognize that the accompanying agendas that they hold do not truly align with your higher self and its goals and desires. At which point, the ball is in your court. And I would argue that the very axes by which self-development should be measured is the extent to which your higher self has executive authority over your lower sub-personalities. Bars. Self-actualization is the degree to which... What did I write? Self-actualization is the degree to which you can overrule the agendas of the animalistic sub-personalities that make up the decision-making committee inside of your head. Let that one marinate. So, what makes it so hard? The most basic example of this is the marshmallow test, which also happens to be one of the greatest predictors of long-term success. It was basically a test where they got some kids in front of a single marshmallow and said, do you want one marshmallow now, or do you want to wait 10 minutes and get two? Those kids who could delay the gratification and decided to wait 10 minutes to get two turned out better in life because they were able to delay gratification. Sidebar, what's worth noting about this test is that the end goal was still motivated by an animalistic impulse, which was hunger. So, a highly self-actualized person may actually still choose 1 marshmallow now rather than 2 later, because 1 marshmallow is healthier than 2. And if he knows that he'll be incapable of refusing the marshmallows altogether, or doesn't want to spend that much psychological energy resisting the urge, he could spare the energy on self-regulation and end up eating half the amount of refined sugar as a result. But rather than focusing on the marshmallows, let's take it as a metaphor for delayed gratification in general. It's hard to do because the idea of 1 marshmallow now comes with a much more potent emotion than the idea of 2 later. And if your higher self isn't that opposed to the idea of eating the odd marshmallow here and there, you might think, what the hell, I'll save the energy on self-regulation and just eat 1 now. But especially when you're just starting out in your self-development journey, you do sacrifice something when you do that. You sacrifice an opportunity to exercise the muscle of self-actualization. David Goggins is an example of somebody who routinely puts himself through hell just so that he can exercise that muscle. As a result of consistently doing this for years and years and years, he's literally achieved impossible things, ran ultra marathons with pneumonia and broken shins, became a Navy SEAL, and changed like hundreds of thousands of lives as a result. So yeah, it works. But maybe you truly don't want to have that type of effect on the world. But if you do, you better start exercising that psychological muscle, because it's the exact same one that will take you from 0 to hero in whatever domain matters the most to you. It's the same muscle that repairs broken relationships, gets you into shape, sorts out your finances, and just generally makes the world a better place. So start using it, because you can. And the benefits will bleed into areas of your life that you couldn't even begin to predict. Sometimes it's not just about acquiring more marshmallows. Sometimes it's about something bigger. I was going to end the video here, but I have a point that I want to make. There's a problem with self-help gurus online at the moment, like Tate and that lot. They advocate for hard work and delayed gratification, etc., but in their messaging, it's all about the marshmallows. Getting more girls, getting more money, or a nice car, which is a good starting point, and I've seen lots of my friends who start off by having those things dangled in front of their face, and then they get force-fed all of the good shit about hard work and delayed gratification and showing up on time and whatnot, and they do genuinely start to make their lives a bit better. They start eating better, they start working on business ideas, they take their job more seriously, they start showing up on time, they start sorting themselves out, presenting themselves more, sexily. They do that for a while, and then it gets to a point where they're just like, I could also just go and party and do loads of cocaine and get with some dirty girls. And then they do that, and it all crumbles down. There is no solid foundation upon which that good behavior was resting. They weren't actually trying to make a change in themselves, they were just trying to be a good boy. And when you're just trying to be a good boy to impress other people, it'll never stay, it'll never stick. You have to be doing something for a bigger reason. Where was I? Oh yeah, it's all about getting more girls, more money, a better body, or a nicer car. But all of those things are oftentimes just goals of your lower sub-personalities. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you're so lost that any trail of breadcrumbs is worth following, or trail of marshmallows, even. But after you get to a certain point, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And if you can't come up with a better answer than to get nicer shit, chances are you're being held captive by sub-personalities that aren't sophisticated enough to give you the genuine sense of meaning that offsets the suffering of life. Nietzsche said, he who has a why can bear almost any how. If your why is just to get more shit, chances are you won't develop into the type of person capable of bearing the how of acquiring it. Peace. I feel like I should do another joke here. Sexy.